A young honor student gets beaten to death with a 2x4 while he's trying to break up a fight between two other students. A teen with the trendiest shoes loses his life as well as his shoes to another who is envious of them. A couple is having a verbal argument when one decides to end the argument not by walking away, but by taking the gun and shooting the one with whom he's arguing. Frustrated individuals walk into schools, places of businesses, grocery stores, and just start shooting people at random to death. These headlines, if you were, taking over the years from our major news outlets, demonstrate succinctly the sad condition in which we find ourselves. Nightly, we hear of murders, not just in the major cities anymore, but also in the rural areas of our country. And we tally up the numbers of the previous day as if we were tallying up the casualties of a foreign war. Have you ever stopped to ask yourselves, how did we get this way? Why is it that the solutions to such varied interests as peacekeeping, the young guy I mentioned at first, to the acquisition of commodities, this desire for name brand things, to conflict management, why is it that the solution to all these things have their answer in the death of another, rather than some more sensible solution? Well, I have to be honest with you. I'm not going to attempt to answer such a large and complex problem as this in a 5 to 10 minute homily. But I will say this: any answer that is given has to consider our loss of respect for life in its conception and at its end. The latest shooting problems, that's big news right now. And for the next few weeks or months, you're going to be hearing all kind of talk about gun control laws, whether to do more of it, whether to do less of it. I'm not even going to come close to that. I have no opinion on that. But this I do have an opinion of. No matter what you do with your laws about guns, pro or con, will not solve the problem, because it's not addressing the problem. The problem is of a moral nature, not an economic one as to whether or not you can sell guns or withhold them from people. The problem lies in our hearts. The problem lies in the fact that now 40 years ago, the church itself, sadly to say, as well as the world, rejected the prophetic words of our Holy Father, Blessed Paul VI, in his last encyclical, Humanae Vitae, on human life. We turn rather to a consideration not of what the gift that life is, but what we wanted. Not an acceptance of something God is turning over to us to cherish and nourish, but rather, my will be done. The cause for life in the modern world has suffered greatly in our failure to protect life as the gift from God that it is. Therefore, any answer to our problems as to the why of this messy world has to start from that moment in which we rejected the value of life. So that in its beginning and in its end, if you do not uphold it, then why should we be so confused about the vast middle portion and all the evil that can take place from rejecting it at its beginning and at its end? This life is a gift from God. It should be cherished. And this Sunday that is dedicated to the respect for life, and in particular human life, tries to put us back in contact with the gift of life and with the God who gives us life. You would think that we would like the idea of being created in the image and likeness of God. After all, the world teaches us to love beauty, and God is all beautiful. The world teaches us to love power, and God is all powerful. The world teaches us to love knowledge, and God is all knowing. So you would think that we would like the idea of being created in the image and likeness of God. But our behavior betrays, at the very least, a confusion about what beauty and power and knowledge are. And at its worst, our behavior betrays a rejection of these things, even to our own undoing. We have jettisoned the truth of God and the discipline of the church. And start with that encyclical, Humanae Vitae, on human life. We have rejected it for our own self-willed confusion. God revealed himself to us by saying, I am. Not by saying, I am not. He put us first and breathed upon the world, and his every breath brought life and life-giving rest. He created something out of nothing. And yet we, in this culture of death, properly so called, in a caricature of God, take something and make of it nothing. We have drifted far away from the image and likeness of God in order to put ourselves first against God's creative word. We've put ourselves first when we prevent even the very possibility of life from forming by various means of contraception. And God said, let it be. And we said, let it not be. That's what the contraceptive mentality does to you. Its consequences are far greater than just the preventing of human life. Its ramifications are broad and deep. We put ourselves first over the very development of life once it is formed by the various means and reasons for abortion. God had said, be fruitful and multiply, subdue the earth. He didn't say destroy it. But so many of our actions do exactly that. We put ourselves first when at the extremity of life and in old age, we no longer respect the dignity and value of life, and so we end it in suicide or euthanasia. Let it not be. Clearly, this is saying that the value of the person lies not in who he is, but in what he can do. And yet God has made us his children. Not in a cafeteria style, picking and choosing. He has made us all his children, rich and poor, homely, comely, or pretty, vigorous in health or infirmed in mind and body. We are his children. Christ died for us because we have value. All of us. Well, at least in his mind. Daily I find myself to be shocked, amazed, I think most often just simply saddened at the throwing away of life in our states and in our country. It would seem that to kill someone is the answer to all life's problems, all life's arguments. Not a day goes by without a murder somewhere, probably even in this city. And indeed, millions of murders of the most innocent have tallied up, millions to rival the greatest of wars. And we are at war. We are at war against life itself. God help us. Our country is awash with blood. How have we gotten to this point? We've gotten to this point by failing to respect the processes by which life is meant to come into being. We've gotten to this point by failing to respect the dignity of life from its first moment of conception to its natural end. We've gotten to this point by jettisoning the truth of God and the discipline of his church. The first word we hear God speak is, "Let there be." And yet the many words we speak too often sound like, "Let there not be." We need not wonder why our lives are so empty or so cheap if each time God wishes to give us something, we say, "Not," "No." If we're to find the face of God once more in our lives and in our world, we have to put aside this culture of death that St. John Paul II warned us of, focused our vision upon. We have to put aside this culture of death and trust in God to provide for all our needs. And let us embrace life when it comes, how it becomes, and how life is to its natural end.